Hello and welcome to the virtual towers of Binary Arcadia, where the games go on long into the night. You're joining me at the very start of my journey into next gen. With the PS5 coming, or Xbox Series X should you go that way, coming later on this year, it was time to upgrade the screen which I'll be viewing my next gen gaming on. So you join us unboxing an LG OLED C9. So let's get into it. I'll briefly talk about while we're getting into it why I chose this. We'll get into in depth why we chose this at the end of the video. But so in summary, saw Tabs' OLED, I don't know, maybe 18 months ago, and at that point I decided I really wanted an OLED. The blacks were incredible. The HDR on Tabs' television is amazing. Some of the films we've watched on that. So yeah, I was sort of committed. I wanted an OLED. Tabs suggested the C9. I originally was looking at Panasonic, but then when we started to look at it, it seemed like last year's, because obviously there's now the C10 out, last year's C9 OLED from LG was probably better than the Panasonic, this year's Panasonic OLED I was looking at. But then there was sort of a toss-up between should I get a C9 or C10, and we'll probably go into a bit more details of why I specifically chose a C9 over and above the C10. But let's get this unboxed. And just in case you're wondering, this TV is replacing my 40-inch, I think it's a 630 Panasonic, I think, I'll put that on screen now, 40-inch, so we're going significantly bigger. So this is a 55-inch. So I've laid the TV down exactly as instructed. Now I've got the base to put on. I believe I've got to assemble the base as a front piece and a rear piece. Join us in a moment and we'll put the base on. So stand is on, TV is ready, so it's out with the old and in with the new. So there we have it. The TV is in and it is beautiful. Fits the space really well, really pleased with it. Next up, we're going to do some calibration on it. So if you've just bought this TV or you're looking to buy this TV and you're thinking, how can I calibrate that? Well, stay tuned because we're going to do a DIY tune. So it'll be slightly tweaked from the out-the-box options, but probably not as in-depth as if you got someone in, subcontractor, to calibrate it for you. So join us for that in a moment. So that was the unboxing. A few days have passed, and now it's time to try and set the TV up for the best possible home calibration I can do. And I'm going to do this following an RTINGS, and we'll link this description down below of how to basically step-by-step guide of how to set the TV up. Obviously I'll be showing you the setup on here. If you do have any questions going forwards and I'm able to answer them, if you drop us a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer them where I can. So let's get into this. So first thing we need to do is turn off the eco settings. So we're going to bring the menu up and we're going to go to all settings. So picture, the first thing we need to do, energy saving needs to be set to off. So yeah, energy saving, we're going to turn that off. Then we're going to go picture mode. Going to go, we've set the picture mode to expert dark room. We've turned energy saving off. If we click on this, we can see the AI picture is turned off. If we go back one, we can see that we have also turned off eye comfort mode is off. So now we're going to go back to the picture and we're going to set contrast to 90. There we go. We're going to do sharpness to 0. We're going to set tint to 0. which it already is, and colour at 50. So just to confirm, we've gone contrast 90, we've gone sharpness 0, we've gone colour 50, and we've gone tint 0. So the top one is the OLED light, and that basically adjusts how bright the picture is. Now, I think the picture is probably bright enough as it is. If we just come out of this, I think that's plenty bright enough for what we're doing, and obviously I can adjust that as required. So then it's recommended that you leave the brightness at 50, and then you adjust the OLED light to what you feel comfortable with, or what you think gives you the best picture. I'm going to leave it as it is and see how it goes. So if we go into expert controls, so we leave dynamic contrast and super resolution off, color gamut left to auto, gamma we're going to set that to 2.2, so we're going to go to sort the white balance out. So the first thing we need to do is set the method to 22 point. And then we need to basically scroll through all of these and then change them to what they need to be. So first one. The second one, 5, all values 0. $60. So 60, we're going to go -1 on adjusting luminance. We're going to go green -3. No, we're not. We're going to go green -2. And then we're going to go blue 0. $65, we're going to go -3 on adjusting luminance, red 0, green -3, blue -3, $70, we're going to go adjust luminance to 2, and we're going to go green 2. $75, we're going to go adjust luminance 2, green 2, blue 2, $80, we're just going to change green to 2, $85, we're going to go adjust luminance to -5, red to -3, green 0, and blue -3, $90, we're going to go adjust luminance to -3, red -4, green -1, blue -3. $95, leave all 0. And 100, leave all at 0. And colour management, we're going to go colour red, saturation 4. Tint 10, luminance 5, green, we're going to go saturation 1, tint 10, luminance -1. Blue, we're going to go saturation 2, tint 7, luminance 1. Just remember to apply these inputs to all inputs, otherwise you'll have to redo this on every input. Cyan, we're going to go saturation 1, tint 3, luminance 1. Magenta, we're going to go saturation 1, tint 5, luminous 2, and then finally yellow, we're going to go saturation 0, tint -5, and luminance 2. And there we have it, that should be all set up now. So there we have it, that is the minefield of setting up the TV. I think I got quite a bit confused in areas, but hopefully that makes some sense to you guys. Certainly great looking TV, and I think it definitely looks better for the sort of home calibration that I've done. So yeah, next up is a little discussion between me and Tabs to sort of discuss why I chose the C9, what's great about OLEDs, and what we've got to come when we get to the PS5. So we've unboxed the TV, we have set up the TV the best we can as a home calibration, and now it's time to discuss why we chose collectively, although it's my TV, we both had a hand in choosing the LG C9.
So yeah, I mean, I had some experience, Rich, didn't I, with TV shopping in recent times, because I've got an LG C7 model. So I'd looked into all, you know, the details, the facts, the specs of OLEDs, at least a couple of years ago now. So I think that's why you perhaps came to me, just to see, you know, what was my insight on the market. And initially, I know you were interested in, well, your old television's a Panasonic television, isn't it?
Yeah, so having seen your TV and know how good, I mean, everybody that I know who's got an OLED just speaks how highly about how amazing they are. You know, people say, you know, it's like night and day getting an OLED. So I was fairly confident that OLED was the one for me, and especially having seen yours, and yours looks fantastic. So then it was a case of which OLED should I buy, and historically my last, I don't know, 3 televisions I would say have been Panasonics. That was sort of my brand of choice, so to speak. So initially I was drawn to the Panasonic, I think it is a CX1000, I think it is.
Or is it GX1000?
Or it might be GX1000, yeah. Because that was sort of the model, the latest model of Panasonic's billing on their OLEDs. it was very new, so no real reviews on it. But then we got talking, didn't we, Tabs? And I was telling you about, it's this price, and you were like, oh well, you might want to look at, an LG or maybe a C9 originally. That was your suggestion.
Well, I think the main benefits of the Panasonic were its colour reproduction. I think that was high up there, wasn't it? And it had a kind of a mode to it, which I think promised, a high level of calibration. And did you say, Rich, that they work directly with Hollywood in terms of going for reference quality in there?
Well, that was part of the filmmaker mode. There was part and parcel of that, which is also on the C10 anyway. So
yeah, that's right. So it was to do with that, but you're basically paying for that extra software, and it's just trying to find out, isn't it? Is it worth paying for? Is it going to make that much of a, global difference to your viewing experience to pay? What was it, Rich? Maybe another 500, 800 quid or something like that.
Yeah, so it's about £2,000 that TV. And when you get down to it, the panel, the actual OLED panel, is in essence an LG panel. So what you're saying is, you think by buying a Panasonic, you're saying that you think Panasonic can do better software and the processing inside the television than LG can. Well, that might be the case, but certainly from past reviews, it seemed to be that the LGs had historically had reviewed much higher than the Panasonic OLEDs, albeit this latest Panasonic has reviewed quite highly.
So in the end, you kind of slipped into, well, let's go for the LG. Let's go for...
Absolutely.
And then the choice then changed to, do we go C9, which was last year's kind of OLED from LG, or do you go for the C10, which, as we know, is just released, pretty much brand new to the market, this year's model. So then Absolutely. It was a case of drilling down, wasn't it, Rich, into the pros and cons, and with reference to our good friend... No, we don't know him really, but Vincent Tech, he runs a channel called HD TV Test, I think it is, Rich.
It is.
And I love him. He's very funny, got a very unique sense of humour, but he knows a lot of stuff about this stuff. He's a professional TV calibrator. And yeah, he did a great review of the C10 as well as a comparison video with the C9, which is worth checking out if you're interested in what we're talking about. But Rich, do you just want to kind of give us your insight on what eventually sort of swayed it for you, really?
Yeah, so initially I was there. So to give some context, the C9 is, I think, circa £1,300, and the C10 is circa £1,800. And initially I want to buy the best TV. This is a TV that I'm going to take into next gen, as I mentioned earlier on in the video. This is like my next gen TV for the PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Future-proofing's key, isn't it, as well, for us? Whenever we buy expensive new tech, we want to make sure it's a wise decision.
Absolutely. So initially it was like, I want to buy the best TV for that purpose, rather than what I could, what's the cheapest necessarily. So initially, price was off the table. Looked down at specs. And to be honest, there's not a lot to choose between the C9 and the C10, certainly on paper anyway. Both got HDMI 2.1, which enables 4K at 120 Hz. But interestingly, the C10 has been downgraded to 10-bit from C9, which is 12-bit. Now, it seems to be...
That's in regards to the 2.1, HDMI 2.1, 4K 120 Hz feature, isn't it, I think, specifically, just to point that out.
Yes, yeah. It does seem that currently, since we don't have anything that can push 4K at 120 Hz to the television, we don't know the real world implications of that, but it seems that the 12-bit is the better option, even though we don't really understand why at the moment that will make a difference.
Yeah, and I think, this might all come out in time on the C10. I think a lot of the issue is it's brand new to market. It's got a very, what would you say, youthful firmware, whereas the C9 firmware is nice and mature. They've ironed out all the bugs. They've done all the snagging. So it might be that they can implement the 12-bit 4K 120 hertz version on this new C10, and it might be that they iron out all of the snagging issues currently in the C10 firmware, as pointed out by Vinny Tio. So that might end up becoming a really good choice, but for right now, for you, Rich, based on what you were getting out of it, and in fact, as you point out, you're actually losing out on a couple of features, and you're going to be paying £500 more for that benefit. So,
absolutely. So once you figure out that actually there's not a great deal to choose between the two of them, you would say the CX has the filmmaker mode, which we mentioned earlier that the Panasonic has. That is a plus, but currently that's so new technology, the uptake of that is unknown. We don't know whether that will become prevalent on next gen Blu-rays, for instance. But again, currently there's nothing that is utilising that in terms of sending the raw metadata to turn it on the TV. So that's almost like a redundant feature until we see how that's going to go. So then once you realise there's not a great deal to choose between them, then of course you can bring the money aspect back onto the table. Well, is it worth the extra £500 that you have to pay for the C10 over the C9 for what in essence is very few extra features?
I mean, we should just, Rich, worth drawing an outline around what are the most salient features for, next gen and for a gamer, I suppose. So you're looking at input lag, which I believe for the C9 and C10, it's the same. Is it something like 13 milliseconds?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
You've got, obviously, the resolution itself, so we know both are capable of 4K, 120 hertz. C9 currently has the full-fat version of that. That's giving you that ceiling in terms of best resolution and the highest frames per second. Then you've got the G-Sync compatibility, which, in a nutshell, Rich, and help me explain this if I'm failing, but it's matching the output frame rate, so say from the software you're playing to your screen that you're playing that on, which avoids screen tear, doesn't it? I think, Rich, or at least lessens screen tearing.
Doesn't it work with is it VRR?
I'm not sure on the tech specs on that. I'll trust you on that if you say that.
Which I believe is where it can basically vary the frame rates based on the performance of your graphics card, in essence. So it can monitor and change them accordingly.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Which is perhaps not dissimilar to what you see in some games, isn't it? When they have a dynamic frame rate, dynamic resolution.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so I think those are the most salient features. Am I missing anything out? I suppose as well, HDR. You want to make sure that your HDR is good, and with an OLED, the benefit of that is where you've got these super deep blacks that obviously contrast all the more with the highlights in a picture and really make that HDR effect, all the more impressive. Gives a real three-dimensional image, I think, doesn't it, Rich?
Absolutely, and it makes the colours more vibrant as well, I've noticed, since having watched HDR, because the HDR turns on when HDR content is sort of being received, and it does show that the colours really light themselves up. And I believe as well, I was reading that when HDR is enabled, the backlight of the OLED goes to 100%.
Okay, yeah.
By default, that's how it's set by default, apparently. And you can really notice that when HDR clicks in, the screen instantly becomes brighter.
Yeah, spot on. And certainly in some of these new games, it's going to make a big difference, isn't it? To that.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, let's face it. The main reason for changing the telly, other than so I could have my old telly up here, which can be seen behind me for gaming or streaming, I guess, was to in preparation for the beautifulness that will be next gen.
So I suppose, Rich, a good way to wrap it up might be, you've had the TV for a little while now, haven't you? So perhaps give an account of...
A week.
not a thorough review as such, but perhaps give an account of, has it impressed you? Are you pleased with it? Are there any things to consider? Are there any drawbacks maybe that you hadn't thought about that you now realise? And are you still happy, with it being your window into next-gen games?
So I just start by saying absolutely, the screen is fantastic. I'm really, really pleased with it. Netflix 4K HDR content, or any of the content on Netflix for that matter, looks incredible. I don't think I've watched anything on Amazon Prime at the moment, but the standout at the moment for me is the Disney
Plus.
Plus. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Their 4K HDR is outstanding. The Mandalorian looks incredible. I'm starting to watch all of the Marvel films, and they just look amazing. So that's the standout for me. One thing which is a bit of a shame, really, I have Sky HD, and I have to say the Sky HD doesn't look that good on this TV. And it was through some further research that the Sky HD box that I have, I don't know whether all Sky HD boxes are like this, it is only capable of doing a 1080i, so that's an interlaced picture. And although the HD looks good, say on my old television, moving to this television, it does look a little bit ropey. And that sort of forced my hand into upgrading my Sky to Sky Q, so that I can get that 4K as well, and obviously the new Sky boxes are able to do progressive, so that is much better. And I think that's my only drawback at the minute. Sky looks a little bit ropey, but like I say, that a fix for that is on the way.
And in the interest of being thorough, Rich, I suppose we should just point out we do know the C10 has a better implementation of what's called black frame insertion, which is one of the solutions that these modern TVs use for I think, smoothing motion and making motion perceived better to the human eye anyway. I think yours goes up to 60 Hertz, but I think the C10 goes up to 120 Hertz. Mm-hmm. So I suppose if you're especially sensitive to motion and you have a lot of 1080i or interlaced content, then, you know, it might be worth looking at that one. But again, for your use case, wasn't a big issue, was it? And like you say, you're upgrading now anyway and removing interlaced content from your...
I would say that's the other thing that I've noticed. Sports, I've watched a bit of Formula 1 and I've watched a bit of football. There is what is perceived in my mind as judder. So almost like the image is like juddering across the screen. But I have spoke to Tabs about this, and we think that is to do with the fact that it's an interlaced picture, basically, and not a great implementation of the HD.
And yeah, I understand it can be to do with 24 frames per second content as well. But again, it's all subjective, because different people have different sensitivities to judder. Others don't really notice it at all. Rich and I seem to have quite a sensitivity to it, and I think it's just an inherent issue with OLEDs because of how good they are. I think, especially with 24 frames per second content, they reveal the flaws in the quality of the content outputted, so you don't get the same sense of motion smoothing as you do, at least with other TV technologies that we're perhaps used to. So it's kind of a bullet you have to bite, but at the same time, realistically going forwards, Rich, I think with the content you're going to be piping into your C9, it's going to be a non-issue.
So there we have it. The next gen TV I chose was the LG C9. Let us know if you've got a C9, or maybe you've bought a C10. Let us know how you're happy with that. Let us know how you've gone, if you've chosen a home calibration like I've gone. And if you did, like I said previously, that link down below if you want to follow that guide. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, drop us a comment, give us a like, subscribe to the channel. And I think that's about all we've got time for. Another one for the archive.
Stamped and completed.